Hello and welcome. Welcome. My V-Bridger is finally working. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, those things. Hi. How you doing? We're reading Scum Villain. Like we do every most Sundays, let's be real. Gotta take this off. Gotta take that off. Where's my shit? Where's my shit? Here's my book. And we have my book. And we have a book. And we're ready to read the water prison arc. I love this book so much. I love it so much. I'm so happy we're here. Chapter 7. We're on chapter 7, page 87. If you don't remember where we left off at Shen Qingzhou being like, okay, take me to prison. Take me to prison. Wink wink, Shang Qinghua. Gay, you're gay. We're over gay. He said, wink wink, Shang Qinghua, get the mushroom ready. And then so he's gonna go to prison. Who knows what's gonna happen to them there? Who knows? Except me and everybody who's already read it. Alright. I need to organize some shit. No, we're good. Okay. Everything's fine. I'm just getting settled. I'm just getting settled in. I have my tea. Ada. Fuck you. Anyway. Why fuck you? What do you mean? Should I have a yada yada one? Yada yada. No, I'm done. We're not doing anything about this readings. Hopefully my eyes don't die today, cause yesterday they died at around this time. My eyes jumped out of my blood. Real. And yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen today. Yippee! Okay. Water Prison. Chapter 7. Please wear this, Senior Shen. As soon as Shen Qingzhou lowered his head, a strip of black cloth covered his eyes. In truth, this action was entirely superfluous. Given the hundreds of twists and secrets in Huanhua Palace's maze array, even if Shen Qingzhou held a video camera for the entire trip and recorded everything, he probably wouldn't remember how to enter or leave. The air in the water prison was damp, the ground slightly slippery. With his eyes blindfolded, his only choice was to let the escorting disciples lead him. Gong Yizhao, he said. Gong Yizhao had been following close behind him the whole time and quickly answered, Senior? While waiting for the 4 sects joint trial, am I allowed any contact with outsiders? Only those with Huanhua Palace's authorization pass have free passage inside the water prison. Footnote: this was a metal plate carved with a person's name and position, usually worn on the waist. It was often used for authorization checks for entering restricted areas. Therefore, it would be a bit difficult for Shang Qinghua to visit and discuss the plan to use the dew mushrooms. Shen Qingzhou thought for a while, then asked, how were those sowers dealt with? Gong Yizhao faithfully answered in full. After they were burned, the masters from Jiahua Monastery took them back to perform rites for their souls. From the side came a disgruntled noise. Shishang, why are you telling him so much? Now that you've entered this water prison, could it be that you still think to leave? Such a familiar voice. Wait, who is this? I don't know. Such a familiar voice. It was once again that pock-faced disciple who seemed to have a grudge against him. Who? Don't be rude, Gong Yizhao scolded him. Shen Qingzhou smiled. Currently, this one's identity is that of a prisoner. There's no need to scold him. Let him do as he wishes. As he spoke, they arrived in the place where he was to be held and in temporary custody. After the black cloth was undone, his vision became faintly brighter, and he saw that they were standing before a giant stone cave. Below them was a dark, murky lake, while dim yellow torches were scattered unevenly in the surrounding walls. The flames reflected in the water were where they danced wildly with the ripples. From the center of the lake jutted an artificial platform of white stone, sparkling and translucent. Its color was almost like jade. It had no doubt been made out of a special material. One second, I forgot I have to send a text message. One moment, please. I made spaghetti with meat sauce. That's the text. I'm just sending it to my sister so she knows there's food available. Alright. Where were we? Special material. Gong Yizhao took out a ring of keys and felt about an area of rock. After his hand performed some sequence, the sound of gears turning came from the lake bed, and up rose a stone path that led directly to the platform at the heart of the lake. Gong Yizhao said, "Senior, if you please." That pock-faced disciple picked up an ordinary stone. "Watch." He threw the stone into the lake water, and it floated without sinking. After a moment, there came a sizzling noise. Meat grilling on an iron griddle. The surface crawled with bubbles, at which point the stone rapidly corroded and dissolved until it vanished completely. "This particular prison doesn't get used often," the pock-faced disciple said gleefully. "Anyone who wants to escape or break someone out of here is dreaming, deluded." Shen Qingzhou was astounded by the ferocity of this liquid. If someone took a tumble into that lake, it was likely not even their bone shards would remain. Wasn't Huanhua Palace a famous righteous sect? Where were they sourcing so much of this ferocious, obviously illegal liquid? As Shen Qingzhou walked along the stone path, he was especially careful. If he were to slip, he wouldn't have any fun at all. Once he arrived on the platform at the lake's center, Gong Yizhao turned the key again, and the path leading to it once again sank back into the lake bed. How is that path not being corroded away? Shen Qingzhou sat down on the stone platform and observed his surroundings, secretly trying to determine if a sword could render all this corrosive lake water pointless. He just had this thought when Gong Yizhao pulled on a mechanism next to the keyhole. From above him there came a gurgling sound of flowing water. Shen Qingzhou raised his head just in time to see dark and murky water descend all around him, forming an airtight curtain that hemmed him in on the 20 by 20 meter stone platform. I was wrong. Oh, wait, reverb. Okay. I was wrong. Forget about people. Even a fly wouldn't be able to leave, okay? Huanhua Palace's water prison's reputation was well justified. No wonder all the sects had unanimously elected it to serve as the public prison. Scene break. But we're not breaking. Shen Qingzhou knew that someone would definitely come looking for trouble, but he hadn't expected it to happen so fast. Who could it be? He was woken by a basin of cold water. He was woken by a basin of cold water, splashing all over him. I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be like that. Anyway, Shen Qingzhou jolted up, freezing. At first he thought he'd dozed off and fallen into the lake. He shook his head and blinked as hard as he could. The sensation of icy lake water in his eyes was supremely uncomfortable, and only now did he become certain that he had been doused with ordinary liquid. The 118 immortal binding cables twined around his body, might have been incredibly thin, but they firmly shackled his meridians, binding him tightly until even his blood flow was restricted, so his cold resistance had greatly decreased. He couldn't stop himself from shivering a bit. Oh no, he's cold! Oh no. The water curtain around him had stemmed? And the adjustable path connecting the stone platform to the outside world was now raised. What does stemmed mean? His vision gradually cleared. Turning it upward, he first saw a pair of dainty, exquisitely embroidered shoes, then looking up further, the pink hem of a skirt. In the end, he beheld a maiden dressed entirely in pink and bedecked with jewels, with shapely brows and almond eyes, a metal whip over her shoulder. She was staring at him. Shen Qingzhou internally rolled his eyes. Luo Bingke was really too good at tormenting people. These wives of his were enough to make a person beg for mercy. It was like he was on a horseback flower-viewing trip. They popped up one after another, and each gave him more trouble than the last. I don't understand what that means, but okay. There's no need to keep turning up. I'm not the original flavor. I have no interest in molesting beauties, okay? The maiden pointed at him with her whip. If you're awake, if you're awake, don't play dead. This palace mistress has things to ask you. With her seniority and her abilities, irrespective of how wretched Shen Qingzhou might be at present, she could never have the right to interrogate him. So Shen Qingzhou said, "This doesn't seem like something the little palace mistress should do." The pearl on the old palace master's palm, and the apple of his eye, the unruly head of Luo Bingke's harem, spoke without the least bit of courtesy. "Enough with the blather. Since you know who I am, then you must also know my reason for coming." The rims of her eyes reddened, and she said through clenched teeth, "You demon realm colluder! You vile, despicable traitor to your own comrades! The heavens have eyes. Now that you've fallen into this palace mistress's hands, I will make you pay." "I don't remember admitting to collusion with the demon realm," said Shen Qingzhou. The little palace mistress stamped her feet. "You think that just because you haven't admitted it, I can't teach you a lesson? You're a long-famous senior, yet you were still so cruel, so ruthless to Luo Gege. Naturally, you would be capable of doing things like colluding with the demon race as well. Genetic inheritance is truly powerful. With this logical prowess, you're undeniably the old palace master's child by blood." Shen Qingzhou was silent for a while, then said, Did he really say that I was cruel and ruthless to him?" The little palace mistress's delivery was beautifully passionate. "Luo Gege is such a good person, so of course he wouldn't say it. The wounds he's suffered are all hidden within his heart, where no one can touch him, where no one can touch them, where no one can see them. But do you think that just because he doesn't say it, I won't be able to tell? Have I not eyes nor heart?" ... These heartfelt feelings, Shen Qingzhou's entire body felt like it was about to burst from all the oversharing. Is this a motherfucking poetry recitation contest? He really didn't know whether to pound the ground in hysterical laughter or to start crying hot tears. This was before whether to laugh or to cry. I'm sorry. I know laughing at a girl who's sincerely expressing her profound love is terrifically rude, but this is really way too embarrassing. It's basically humiliation play. Though Luo Bingke's harem was vast, it was honestly a barely functional mess with all sorts of personality types. This was the result of biting off more than you could chew, valuing quantity over quality. It was also the result of Airplane shooting towards the sky's insistence on writing a stallion novel, despite being a shitty otaku who'd barely ever touched a woman's hand. Serves you right. Ha 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 ha. What kind of expression is this? Is that? The little palace mistress said with sudden suspicion. Shen Qingzhou swiftly pulled himself together, checking to see if his face had just been stretched in a grin. Offending this brat wouldn't yield any good results. As expected, the little palace mistress flew into a rage. Were you laughing at me just now? The little palace mistress had originally been in love with her childhood sweetheart, Gong Yizhao. But after Lobinka appeared, all her passions had surged toward the male lead. There was nothing to be done about it, since ancient times, in a war between a fated love and a childhood friend, the fated love's victory was never in doubt. This kind of setup, where the target of affection changed one way or another, was actually incredibly common in stallion novels, because there were many cuckold fetishists in the world. Whether it was cucking others or being cucked themselves, they derived a strange pleasure from this type of plot. The person whose affections drifted would, of course, believe that they hadn't done anything wrong because they were pursuing their true love, but eventually the guilt would weigh on their conscience. Whenever they saw someone's expression grow a little off, they would feel like that person was laughing at them. Just so, the little palace mistress's shame became anger. She swung her arm and the whip cracked forth. The whip's momentum was immense, its crack shrill beyond compare. Shen Qingzhou's spiritual circulation was obstructed by the immortal binding cables, but his agility had yet to deteriorate. He rolled along the floor, and the whip just happened to smash down less than a meter from his foot. The smash sent rock shards and pulverized dust flying from the stone platform. In a half-kneel, Shen Qingzhou steadied himself. "Holy shit! What's a young maiden doing, using this kind of barbed iron whip? It doesn't fit your image!" What fit even less was the fact that, in the original work, the little palace mistress's refined iron whip had only been used for attacking love rituals. It was a tool for fighting over men and getting into B/B fights. Only ever used to hit pretty women. What? Not pretty... What? Oh yeah, it does say that. Okay, interesting. Only ever used to hit pretty women if Lobinka stared at them for too long. So why was it being used to hit a man? Shen Qingzhou, if you know the parallels, if you see the parallels, why can't you just accept your fate? I love him. "Your whip is crying, can't you hear? And I've had enough. Can you stop giving me this kind of script?" Having missed, the little palace mistress's rage grew. With a sweet-sounding cry, she pulled back her whip and retook her stance. The stone platform was only so large, and Shen Qingzhou was moreover tied up. So however fast his reflexes were, the whip's wind inevitably grazed him and ripped his clothes in several places, though it had yet to do him real harm. After continuous dodging, he was soon back to the edge of the stone platform. No matter where he looked, he saw nowhere to retreat, meaning he could only directly take a lash. Shen Qingzhou clenched his teeth and braced himself, shutting his eyes and waiting for the pain to strike. But even after waiting for some time, a long time, he felt no physical pain. He quickly opened his eyes, and his heart instantly sank. Lobinka was gripping the whip's lash in his bare hand. Two masses of ghostly pitch-black fire seemed to burn within his eyes, both cold and terrifying. "What are you doing?" he asked, enunciating each word, his voice frozen down to its core. The little palace mistress hadn't noticed him appear and started in fright. But what truly scared her was that frigid, severe expression she'd never seen before. She shivered despite herself. Ever since they'd become acquainted, Lobinka had always been incredibly kind, good at coaxing and lifting moods. Never before had he turned this manner of murderous gaze upon her. The little palace mistress found herself backing up several steps as she stammered, I asked Daddy for the authorization pass so I could interrogate him for a bit." "The joint trial is in a month," Lobinka said frostily. The little palace mistress suddenly felt aggrieved. "He's hurt so many of my Shishong and Shiji, so many," she shouted. "And he was terrible to you. What's wrong with me teaching him a lesson?" Lobinka yanked her whip clean out of her hands, treating the sharp barbs like they were nothing. He didn't seem to use much strength, but when he relaxed his fingers, he revealed that the refined iron whip's segments had been reduced to a pile of metal scrap. "Go back," Lobinka said impassively. Having just watched a beloved possession be reduced to a handful of tiny fragments, the little palace mistress let out an "ah" in outright disbelief. Sobbing, she pointed at Shen Qingqiu and then at Lobinka. You... yeah, okay. You're going to treat me this way? I'm angry for your sake, yet you won't let me touch him? Lobinka gave her no answers then and threw the shards of the destroyed whip into the lake, the hissing sound as they corroded filling her ears, unending. The translation could be better, again. Hydrate, okay. I did it. The little palace mistress's lip trembled. In that instant, she suddenly felt that what Lobinka actually wanted to crush mote by mote, until he threw it into the corrosive lake, was her. And this was not remotely a joke. Filled with sorrow and indignation, little palace mistress yelled, "I was doing it for you!" Then she turned and fled in tears. The script is wrong, Shen Qingqiu howled internally. The fuck? Motherfucker, something's gone wrong. He hadn't finished before Lobinka's gaze shifted to him. Shen Qingqiu felt like his teeth, stomach, and balls were all aching from stress. Looking out. This is looking stupid. At this moment, he'd have preferred to receive 180 lashes from the little palace mistress's whip. At most, it would be a surface injury kind of ache, and it would still be better than being with Lobinka in an enclosed area while every bit of his body hurt. Well, this is crazy, but okay, I know it's crazy. The two of them looked at each other in silence for a long time. Then Lobinka took a step toward him. Shen Qingqiu unconsciously maintained a distance between them, his manner aloof. Lobinka's outstretched hand halted in midair for a while. Then he withdrew it. He humphed. There's no need for Shizun to be so wary. If I wished to do something to you, I wouldn't need to touch you at all. Hugely true. A single drop of heavenly demon blood inside one's stomach was akin to a time bomb planted within one's body. Only the possibilities were unlimited. If Lobinka wanted, a crook of his finger could puncture Shen Qingqiu's intestines and destroy his stomach, or cause him enough pain to make him wish for death. Shen Qingqiu sat back down in a meditative pose and lifted his eyes to meet Lobinka's gaze. 1 month. No matter what, he had to hold out for 1 month. Afterward, he'd be a bird soaring high and free. A big whatever to all this crap. Who gives a shit? The two of them were silent for a while. Shen Qingqiu deliberated for a moment before he said, If you wish to do something to me, there's no need to rush. If you wait until after the joint sect trial, my reputation will be ruined, and I'll have no chance to turn things around. If you wait until then to settle all debts, wouldn't you have a just reason to do so, and won't it be powerfully satisfying? He spoke these words totally based on his understanding of the original Lobinka's ways of thinking. Logically, it should have been an excellent argument in accordance with Lobinka's tastes. Unexpectedly, not only did Lobinka's expression fail to clear, it became even more bitingly cold. He narrowed his eyes. Why is Shizun so certain the joint trial will find him guilty? That should be a question for you, shouldn't it? Asked Shen Qingqiu. For me? Lobinka repeated. He laughed forbiddingly. Again, me. Shen Qingqiu had no words for him. This Jinlan City plotline was a new addition. In the original timeline, Lobinka would have still been leveling up underground at this moment, and he never would have appeared at all. Thus, Shen Qingqiu didn't have the advantage of an omniscient POV, but airplane shooting towards the sky had guaranteed one thing. After Lobinka completed his leveling process and returned to the surface, every scheme and murder had something to do with him. However you thought about it, he was more suspicious than anyone. Lobinka's expression was sullen. He paced a few circles back and forth, his hands behind his back, then sharply turned around and said in a bitter tone, I dare ask, Shizun, are you going to blame every last one of the demon race's sins, their murdering and marauding, their crimes and evil deeds on me? Shenjito furrowed his brow. His lack of answer made Lobinka lazily clench his fist. Once you clearly trusted me so much, but now you suspect me of harboring ulterior motives at every turn. Is the difference between realm and race so profound that it could so wholly change your attitude towards someone? Shenjingzhou was simply unable to hold back. He gathered his courage and said, If that's the case, I also have a question for you. Lobinka tilted his head. This disciple is listening. If you deny harboring ulterior motives, for what reason did you turn Huanhua Palace to your side? Why wasn't the male lead following the original plot? Having suffered the constraints of the system and the plot himself, Shen Qingzhou had asked this question. Lobinka started to move his lips as if he were about to speak, but in the end, he hesitated to open his mouth. Shen Qingzhou was a bit surprised. You can't answer? There was that silver tongue capable of taking on the entirety of Sangcheng Mountain with elegant... where was that silver tongue? Capable of taking on the entirety of Sangcheng Mountain with eloquence alone. Was this the cost of going through the endless abyss plot arc too speedily and not properly training on XP farming? Lobinka hadn't sufficiently leveled up in his speech skill tree. Shizun doesn't trust me either way, said Lobinka. Whether I answer or not, what's the difference? In the shadowy water prison, the water reflected the trembling firelight. Shen Qingzhou's heart seemed to tremble along with it. After facing each other in silence for a while, Lobinka suddenly said, But I hope Shizun can give me an honest answer to one question. Pursing his lips, he stiffly added, Just one question. Speak. Lobinka sucked in a light breath. He said quietly, Do you regret it? Shen Qingzhou closed his mouth and did not reply. His eyes moved, looking Lobinka up and down from head to toe. This, do you regret it, was all he'd said, nothing more. He had to be asking if Shen Qingzhou regretted kicking him into the endless abyss. Nonsense. Of course he regretted it. His intestines had twisted into knots with regret. But what did Lobinka mean by asking this? Shen Qingzhou's temples were twitching when a giant window abruptly popped up before him. Please peruse your choices. Choice A. Yes, this master regretted it from the start. These past few years, there wasn't a moment that I did not spend racked with remorse, though it was far too late. Choice B. In parentheses, a disdainful laugh. After seeing what you've become today, I know there will be no need to regret. Choice C. Maintain silence. How about you go die? You upgraded and this was the fucking update? What the fuck is with those parentheses? You've even set the tone and expression for me. Do you think we're playing a dating sim? This is worse than the original low-tech version. Quick! Who can give me a System 1.0 installation package? I'll thank their entire family. Shen Qingzhou's face filled with black lines as he complained in his head. A is way too fake. If I were Lobinka, not only would I not believe me, I'd be disgusted. And what the hell is B? Are you sad he didn't snap my neck last time? Please make a selection. C. Character depth level plus 10. Can't you tell me how this character depth is calculated? So, he gazed fixedly ahead and kept his silence. Unable to get an answer, Lo Binghe's tightly clenched fist gradually loosened, and he laughed at himself. I knew the answer, but I still asked Shizun. I'm so stupid. If Shen Qingzhou hadn't known that Lo Binghe was the power source of all the systems in this world, he would definitely have suspected that he'd been replaced by his own impostor via transmigration. Which was to say, if not for his omniscient understanding of the plot, Shen Qingzhou would have suspected that Lo Binghe was really a bit sad. Silence was golden. More words meant more mistakes. Shen Qingzhou closed his eyes and sat without speaking, his legs crossed. Facing this voiceless spell, Lo Binghe spoke in a light, icy voice. Shizun, you were always a man of few words, but you were once willing to say those few words to me, and now you won't do even that. After a pause, his tone suddenly changed and he sneered. But it doesn't matter. I have plenty of ways to make you talk. Speaking makes you unhappy. Refusing to speak also makes you unhappy. Why? What crime did I commit? After a moment, the stabbing pain disappeared and it was replaced by a strange sensation. Oh, I skipped a thing. Hang on. There's plenty of ways to make you talk. As this last syllable left his lips, Shen Qingzhou's eyes flew open. A dense spate of stabbing pains erupted from his abdomen. He has cramps. Speaking of, what crime did I commit? After this moment, the stabbing pain disappeared, and it was replaced by the strange sensation of something crawling inside his blood vessels. The heavenly demon blood had been in hibernation for many days, and had since totally adapted to the environment inside its host's body. Impelled by its master, it had coalesced into insects and was beginning to explore its host's internal organs. Lo Binghe said leisurely, spleen, kidneys, heart, lungs. As he listed each organ, an utterly bizarre, itching pain would burst from that location. It was veritably both an itch and a pain, like rows upon rows of tiny, densely packed teeth biting down, and it was accompanied by a burning sensation. Though it wasn't to the point of extraordinary anguish, it was still awful to suffer through. Shen Qingzhou couldn't remain sitting up any longer, and he folded over at the waist, resisting the urge to curl up into a ball. Cold sweat dripped down together with the beads of water still on his chin. This action finally seemed more like Lo Binghe's style, but too bad it was being used on him. Fuck, his stomach hurt so much. Was this what it felt like when girls got their periods? I don't know. Maybe. Shizun, where do you want them to start biting? Lo Binghe asked warmly. Nowhere! Wait, they haven't even started biting yet? What will it feel like when they do? Shen Qingzhou slapped the system window. Think of something, okay? I'm still your customer, alright? Use key item fake jade guanyin. Please note, this item may only be used once. What's Lo Binghe's current anger level? 30 points. How is it so low? Are you sure you didn't calculate wrong? This is entirely unscientific. Use a godly item that could eliminate 5,000 anger points on a 30-point problem? Absolutely not. Are there any other options? What's the second highest rated method in the field? Activate small scenario pusher? From name alone, it didn't sound exceptionally high-tech, but if this was the second highest rated method in the field, it would do. Shen Qingzhou decisively selected it. Lo Binghe sneered. You don't want to look at me. You don't want to talk to me. Do you think I'm filthy? As he spoke, he took an unexpected step forward and humphed. If so, I refuse to give you what you want. He reached out to grab Shen Qingzhou's shoulder. As he moved, Shen Qingzhou unconsciously dodged. Luo Bingke caught nothing but the corner of his clothing. Shen Qingzhou's outer robe had already been ripped to shreds by the little palace mistress's whip. With this tug, over half of it tore straight off his shoulder. Neither of them could have expected this development. Both were frozen on the spot, petrified. Now, let me get the illustration up. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Let's take this in for a little bit. His shocked, he's so look at his fucking face. Look at his fucking face. Oh, so cute. Okay. Continuing. A basin of cold water had been dumped all over Shen Qingzhou, and even now his clothes and hair stuck wetly to his fair skin, while strand upon strand of immortal binding cables, as thin as red thread, was wound around his body. Even if the shocked expression on his face couldn't have been any more proper, his entire person looked extremely improper. He's naked. He's not completely naked. He's almost naked. Luo Bingke's eyes suddenly opened wide. He stared for a while, then whipped his hand away and spun around like he had been scalded by an iron. Oh, his gay little heart. His gay little heart. As Luo Bingke backed away, the blood mites that had been writhing in Shen Qingzhou's internal organs seemed to startle as well. They scattered like birds and beasts. Birds and beasts. Interesting phrase to say at this moment in time. And the sense of blockage in his blood vessels instantly disappeared. I guess it's not birds and bees. I guess it's birds and bees, but like close enough. Shen Qingzhou panted, his heart flooding with tears. His period was finally over! Now, how exactly does this small scenario pusher work? Does it just make me lose some of my clothes? Might as well call it small stripping assistant. What's the logic underlying the function? Does it just take advantage of Luo Bingke's physiological disgust upon seeing a man's half-naked body? Disgust. That's what we're calling it. That is what we're calling it. Luo Bingke stood stiffly, for sure, with his back turned for a while, like he didn't know where to put his limbs. Without warning, he tugged off his outer robe at top speed and tossed it behind him. The robe hit Shen Qingzhou full in the face. Shen Qingzhou was speechless. What's the meaning of this? This scene, these actions, why did they make him so thoroughly uneasy for no discernible reason? He couldn't help but be reminded of that classic bad trope wherein, after a violated young maiden was rescued, her boyfriend draped a warm coat over her. Shen Qingzhou's hair stood on end. He lifted his arm, letting Luo Bingke's black robe slide from his shoulders. The soft, fine fabric dropped to the ground, silver light shimmering along the exquisitely sleek embroidery. At the rustling sound, Luo Bingke turned back to look and saw his robe abandoned on the ground. Shen Qingzhou had even cautiously pushed it toward him a bit. Shen Qingzhou had actually also considered folding it for Luo Bingke, but he was only thinking about it and hadn't yet made a move to do so. When he looked up, Luo Bingke had already turned around, and his eyes were blinding as they reflected the firelight. It seemed like he was in a fury. The veins on the backs of his hands popped, his fingers clenching and unclenching several times. Then, As if trying to vent his rage, he fired off a succession of spiritual blasts. He was, in fact, launching these attacks with no target at all. A few hit the surface of the lake, striking waves of water high into the air. Another hit the wall of the cave, opening a giant crater. Pieces of stone rolled down, and the torches shook and fell into the lake. However, they weren't extinguished, and instead they continued to burn brightly on the water's surface, casting Lobinka's face in a flicker of light and shadow, lending him a ghostly air. Lobinka carefully drew back. I almost forgot. Shizun dislikes anything the demon race has touched. The oh-so-mighty male lead had given up protecting his image to throw a tantrum for no reason. How is this any different from a little child kicking their toys all over the place when they don't get their way? You're cutting your own ratings, really. A perfectly good cave and its perfectly good walls were chock full of holes before Lobinka finally finished raging. He turned to find Shen Qingzhou still observing him, unperturbed. A vein seemed to jump a few times in Lobinka's temple, and he forced out through gritted teeth. In a month, I want to watch every step of your fall from grace with my own eyes. Having thrown down these words, Lobinka swept his sleeves and stalked away, slamming a hand onto the mechanism as he exited the cave. With a rumble, the water curtain poured back down. Shen Qingzhou sat in place, staring upward in bewilderment. He was already a prisoner for Lobinka to do with as he pleased, so why was he so angry? The inside of the cave was dark and gloomy. When the frigid wind blew, Shen Qingzhou's wet clothes stuck to his skin, freezing him until he was shivering in earnest. To the side, Lobinka's robe still lay where it had been tossed to the ground. Shen Qingzhou's mind wandered despite his circumstances. When Lobinka had studied on Qingjing Peak, he'd never even randomly thrown tantrums, forget about demonstrating such volatile mood swings. But the way he'd looked while shaking out his sleeves and storming off had, unexpectedly, given Shen Qingzhou a shadow of a glimpse of the little lamb he once knew. Being wrong genre savvy is such a specific affliction that Shen Yuan could believably be in purgatory. Wrong genre savvy is something. Hello, Malfman, welcome. Welcome in. Yes, little lamb. When he returned to himself, his entire body was racked with cold and he wanted to sneeze. With no other options, Shen Qingzhou's fingertips gingerly closed over that black outer robe, and he hesitantly draped it over himself. It couldn't be helped. It wasn't like he was being tsundere earlier, just that he had been frankly unable to make himself do this in front of Lobinka. That's the definition of you fucking idiot. That's the definition of tsundere. You stupid man. After all, in the original work, hadn't Lobinka given girls this exact robe every time after they had sex? So how could he wear it right in front of the protagonist? How could he? How could he do that? Someone was. I mean, yeah. Uh-oh. There's a scene break now. Uh-oh. Let's see. Ooh, this chapter is... Oh, wait, no, what? How did I get to that chapter now? Oh, okay. This chapter is quite long. I think we'll take a break here to feed dog and get more tea. And we'll continue on after the scene break. We are on at the bottom of page 106, if you would like to know. Hot, steamy, and magical fuck. I believe it. Yes, of course. That's exactly how... I mean, what? No spoilers. Okay, BRB. BRB. Okay, I'm back. We can take this off now. Alright. Alright. He just had a tantrum. He just had a little hissy fit. WB. WB. Damn, you got a high roll. Let me try. I got a 20! I'm so sorry, that was so loud, but I got a 20! I got a 20! Let's go, bitches! Let's go! Let's go. That means good luck. Good luck to me will happen today, right? Right, universe? Right? Oh. This guy's gay. I am gay. That's too hot. Alright. Let us continue. I will say this before I start again. My throat has been kind of like half sore all day, which is, I don't know why. I don't know why it's been very silly. Maybe my mouth was open while I was sleeping, but yeah, so just be mindful of that. Everyone be mindful of my sore throat, okay? Okay. Anyway. Continuing. Oh, sorry. Shen Jingzhou had learned that whenever he tried to meditate or clear his mind, there was always some form of outside disruption. For example, the time at the Lingxi caves, and now again in the water prison. The stone path rose and the corrosive water curtains stopped flowing. Gong Yizhao hurried down the path. With only a glance at Shen Jingzhou, his feet slipped out from under him. Senior Shen, you... he stammered. What about me? Shen Jingzhou had no idea what was wrong. Gong Yizhao had a strange look on his face, like he didn't know whether he should turn on his heel and retreat. He hesitated on the edge of the stone platform without continuing further. Following his gaze, Shen Jingzhou looked down. That robe, isn't it? Gong Yizhao said hesitantly. Shen Jingzhou sighed. Lobinka's outer robe. Gong Yizhao finally reacted. He coughed shortly, then asked, How has Senior Shen been these past few days? Shen Jingzhou replied, All right. If he weren't so popular, he'd have been even more all right. Within the span of 2 days, 3 people had already visited. This luxury VIP single room in which he was temporarily detained must be the hottest, most popular suite in the history of Huanhua Palace's water prison. I heard that yesterday Luo Shishang was in a terrible rage when he left. This junior was worried that he might have done something to Senior Shen. As Gong Yizhao spoke, his eyes involuntarily drifted back to that black robe. Under his stare, Shen Jingzhou found himself pulling the robe tighter over his chest. Done what? Lobinka had only thrown a tantrum and punched holes in the walls, all over the place, collapsing half the cave. What's with that look in your eyes? What did he do to you? Shen Jingzhou sighed. Lobinka has really taken to Huanhua Palace like a fish to water. Gong Yizhao smiled bitterly. Not only that, Luo Shishang's spiritual power is outstanding, his conduct unwavering, and his actions swift and decisive. Everyone else is left in the dust, so it's no wonder Shizun regards him so highly. If Luo Shishang weren't so insistent on not taking Shizun as his master, I'm afraid I would never have a chance to become... I'm afraid I would never have a chance of becoming head disciple. Sincere sympathy seeped into the gaze Shen Jingzhou sent toward him. This junior came to see you about an important matter, Gong Yizhao said resolutely. This morning, Peak Lord Chang requested an authorization passed from my master, but his application was delayed, and he doesn't know when he will be able to get through. He seemed to have some pressing business, and he asked this junior to bring a letter. As he spoke, he reached into his lapel. Fuck, it really was a letter, and it was only hastily folded twice, even without even a wax seal or a sealing spell. Shan Qinghua, how daring! Please relax, Senior. I've already looked through it, said Gong Yishao. Then relax my ass! However, I couldn't understand what it said. Shan Qingzhou let out an internal sigh of relief. Good. It looked like he had It looked like he had misunderstood. I'm sorry, this is my favorite part of the whole fucking book. It's fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Shang Qinghua wouldn't fuck up that badly. In all likelihood, he'd use a secret code, so there would be nothing to fear even if someone did intercept it. Shan Qingzhou I'm sorry, it's really fucking stupid. It's really, really fucking stupid and you don't even know it yet. Shan Qingzhou shook open the paper with 2 fingers. After skimming it, his face turned green. After reading 2 lines, his face turned white. All sorts of colors bloomed and intertwined over his cheeks in a lively display. He was speechless. The letter was written in English. No, not quite that. It was written in error-ridden Chinglish. The grammar was entirely Chinese, and any word Shang Qinghua didn't know was replaced by its pinyin equivalent. Great Master Airplane shooting towards the sky, did you not consider... What if I can't understand your shit-tier English? After puzzling his way through the general gist of things, Shen Qingzhou directed some energy to his hand. The paper broke into fragments and fell to the floor like June snow, exactly resembling his current tumultuous mental state. As it turned out, it was he who had underestimated Great Master Airplane shooting towards the sky. And now he is I'm assuming he's reading it but like correcting it as he goes on. All right. For Peerless Cucumber's eyes only. Everything is set and the preparations are complete. The location has not changed. It's just that there was a small mishap with the time. In order to make the Sun Moon Dew mushroom mature as soon as possible, I fixed up a little something to promote its maturation. But I accidentally overdid it. Right now, it's as mature as it will ever get, and it will rot in no more than a week. So, I hope you can leave Huanhua Palace's water prison as soon as possible. Don't worry, it was only a bit of something like chemical fertilizer, so there shouldn't be any difference when you use the mushroom. Probably. This wasn't just going off recipe. Did the concept of recipes even exist for this guy? He'd used chemical fertilizer to ripen that all-natural, unpolluted life form. Fertilizer! There shouldn't be any difference when you use it, was a sort of guarantee as trustworthy as the ones from used car salesmen. Gong Yizhao looked around. Senior, are you done reading? If you are, please toss the letter into the lake to destroy it. Actually, yesterday, Luo Shishong gave orders that no one but him was allowed to enter. I must leave as soon as possible so as to avoid being discovered and cause more complications. Shen Qingzhou grabbed Gong Yizhao. Do me a favor. Gong Yizhao responded. Go ahead and ask. As long as Shen Qingzhou didn't wait for him to finish, saying, am able, before he sincerely asked, let me out. Gong Yizhao was silent until he said, with difficulty, Senior, I can't really do that. I have a reason to insist, Shen Qingzhou said solemnly. I swear that I don't intend to flee from the trial. After finishing my affairs, I will return to the water prison of my own volition to await judgment. If you don't trust me, we can take a blood oath. One could not renege. What does that mean? Renege. I think I know what it means, but how do you pronounce it? One does not something on a blood oath. But in truth, after seeing these affairs, it wouldn't matter whether Shen Qingzhou returned to Huanhua Palace's water prison, so he was, in fact, running a scam. I certainly trust Senior, but wasn't detention in the water prison primarily your request? Gong Yizhao said awkwardly. Exactly what could be so critical that you would absolutely have to leave? If you're willing to explain, I can report to the sect leaders and seniors participating in the investigation. Shen Qingzhou was having some second thoughts. Sorry. Gong Yizhao was a Huanhua Palace disciple, and abetting the escape of a prisoner would be no small sin on any head it lay upon. This was an upstanding youngster. Throwing him to the wolves would be rather unkind. Within this 7-day limit, there were bound to be more opportunities. Therefore, he changed his tone. Forget it. It wasn't anything serious. As he spoke, he struggled to collect all the paper fragments on the ground before tossing them into the lake to destroy the evidence. Because most of his body was bound by immortal binding cables, movement was immensely difficult. After he shifted a couple of times, the black robe slid off his body. Gong Yizhao had originally bent down to help, but when he saw the black robe cast aside on the ground, he unintentionally looked up. His arms and legs went rigid at the sight. Shen Qingzhou looked at him askance. The white garment on his body had been ripped clean from his shoulder. It was obvious at a glance that someone had violently torn it apart with their bare hands. In addition, fragments of fabric that looked like they had been shredded by a whip had been left hanging from what remained. More than a few pale red scrapes were evident on the fair skin exposed by the damage. If one looked closely, they would also detect the faint traces of bruises on his neck that had yet to fade. What? The bruises from when Binghu pushed him against the wall that made him drink his blood? Good flavor. Gong Yizhao received a devastating shock to his world view. Senior, are you sure you're all right? He asked in a trembling voice. No wonder Lo Bing had forbidden anyone but him from entering the water prison, even if they had the authorization passed. Why he had even confiscated Peak Lord Shang's application. So it's like this, an insubordinate disciple, devoid of conscience, worse than a beast. Gong Yizhao inwardly cried tears of blood for Senior Shen. As for himself, Shen Qingzhou said blankly, Yes, I'm all right. Gong Yizhao was shaken. How could Senior Shen have such a tranquil expression even in a moment like this? Shen Qingzhou finished tossing all the paper fragments into the lake. You shouldn't take the words... what is he saying? Sorry. You shouldn't take the words I said just now to heart. Gong Yizhao suddenly stood up, turned around, and left. Shen Qingzhou's face filled with black lines. I say you shouldn't take it to heart, and you just up and leave? Isn't that a bit too brisk? Brusque? Brusque? Is that how you say it? But before an hour had passed, Gong Yizhao returned again, carrying something in hand. He walked over to Shen Qingzhou, unwrapped the seals binding that object, and slashed downward. With a white flash, the bindings around Shen Qingzhou's body abruptly loosened, and it felt like an electrical circuit had been reconnected. He stretched his fingers. His spiritual energy was unmistakably back in operation and flowing smoothly. When he had been imprisoned, he had been in the middle of a random, without-a-cure flare-up, but after 2 days of being tied up by the immortal binding cables, the poison had unexpectedly been suppressed. Suppressed again? Was the following the same principle as fighting fire with fire, or how two negatives make a positive? The immortal binding cables fell to the ground in pieces. Gong Yizhao tossed over the object in his hands, and Shen Qingzhou reached out to catch it. Shu Ya! holding the sword, Shen Qingzhou overjoyed and astonished. He looked over at Gong Yizhao. I thought this was supposed to be with the old palace master. Even if I risk... This is Gong Yizhao now. Even if I risk being punished by my master, this junior cannot sit back and remain stoic while senior is disgraced, Gong Yizhao said righteously. I trust you, Senior Shen. Please, follow me. Shen Qingzhou was involuntarily overcome by a sense of helplessness. What's this? I keep feeling like... He seems to have misunderstood something very important. But... forget it. This is fine. All right, Shen Qingzhou said resolutely. Sure, the heavenly demon blood was still dormant within his body, and wherever he ran, Lobinka would always be able to locate him. But that knowledge didn't matter so long as Lobinka couldn't chase him there. Senior, can you walk? Gong Yizhao asked, deeply worried. He's best boy. Do you need me to carry? With a dark expression, Shen Qingzhou took a decisive stride and marched forward, using this action to prove that he could indeed walk, and walk very briskly at that. Gong Yizhao stared, then promptly followed close behind. Unexpectedly, when they stepped off the surface of the stone platform and onto the path, the water curtain that had been raised rumbled overhead, and water gushed down. Shen Qingzhou, who had been running quickly, also braked quickly, lest he take the spray head-on. He stepped back onto the stone platform along with Gong Yizhao, and the water curtain gradually stopped. It was basically deliberately stopping them from leaving. Wasn't this design a bit too intelligent? Gong Yizhao suddenly understood. I forgot. Once the water prison has been activated, there must always be someone on the stone platform. If this person leaves or there isn't enough weight on the platform, the water curtain automatically reactivates, even if the mechanism has been shut off. In the past, he'd never had any experiences with helping a prisoner escape, so naturally he hadn't remembered this. In other words, one person has to be left on the stone platform before the others can leave? Shen Qingzhou asked. Gong Yizhao nodded. Then you stay here. Gong Yizhao was silent. Shen Qingzhou took out his sleeves and headed toward the path. Behind him, Gong Yizhao weakly raised his hand. Senior Shen, even though I am most willing to serve, if you don't have me to lead the way, I'm afraid you won't be able to get out. Shen Qingzhou looked back and added, Wait for me to return. Gong Yizhao stood in place, stupefied. He had a mind to follow, but he was hindered by the fact that he had no way to leave the stone platform, so he could only stand there and wait. A short while later, he heard a muffled sound from outside, and Shen Qingzhou walked back up, dragging a person by the back of their collar. Shen Qingzhou hauled the still unconscious pock-faced disciple onto the stone platform, patted Gong Yizhao on the shoulder, and said, I happened to see this one on patrol and borrowed him for a bit. Let's go. He's so sexy. In reality, he hadn't just happened to see him. There had been 4 people on patrol. Shen Qingzhou had secretly hidden himself, and only after careful selection had he grabbed this mouthy fellow. Just now, it had occurred to Gong Yizhao to grab a random disciple to use as a weight, but the idea had flashed by only indistinctly. Now that Shen Qingzhou had done it himself, meaning there was no need for Gong Yizhao to personally knock out a fellow disciple, he breathed a sigh of relief. As they once more headed toward the outside, shoulder to shoulder, he saw Shen Qingzhou draw that black robe draped around his shoulders tighter, and a lump welled in his throat. He could only feel agonized. He was already reluctant to see Shen Qingzhou, the leader of a peak, be imprisoned and humiliated, yet now Shen Qingzhou needed to depend on a piece of clothing from the one who had assaulted him to cover his body and conceal the marks of that humiliation. How could he not lament in distress? Shen Qingzhou saw Gong Yizhao's expression flicker. It looked like sympathy, but also indignation. Give me 1 second. Wait, I forgot to do this thing because this thing is actually quite hot and I need a coaster to put under it. Otherwise my table might warp. My desk might warp. Warp. It sounds like a Muppet. Anyway, distress. Also indignation. He could only face turbulence with tranquility, and he kept his expression blank. Out of nowhere, Gong Yizhao said, "Senior, please take it off." Shen Qingzhou started. Huh? Without waiting for him to recover, Gong Yizhao had already begun taking off his own outer robe. Shen Qingzhou was just considering whether he should toss a spiritual blast at Gong Yizhao to try and return him to his senses, when Gong Yizhao offered him the outer robe he'd removed with both hands. "Please wear this." Shen Qingzhou suddenly understood. Oh, so that was what he meant. Luo Binghe's clothes were black, but the clothes themselves matched the person, like the male lead himself. They were sophisticated, luxurious, yet understated. Obviously, Gong Yizhao disapproved. Wearing such a robe would only draw attention, but changing into a white robe that looked like it could belong to anybody would be more advantageous to their chances of escape. Such attention to detail. Such attention to detail. Such attention to detail. This guy. Hello, Ven. It is the cat boy. It is. Sorry, my voice is kind of dying, but I'm still reading. Congrats. Congrats on your 5 points. Easy. Stupid. Shen Qingzhou resolutely removed Luo Binghe's robe and changed into Gong Yizhao's. Before leaving, he thought for a moment, then took the time to fold Luo Binghe's robe. Only after this did he place it on the ground. Stop! Don't attack me! Don't do it! Did you already do it? Fucking rude. Fucking rude. Navigation wasn't particularly difficult upon first leaving the water prison, but the further they walked, the more Shen Qingzhou came to appreciate that Huanhua Palace's maze array was indeed exceptionally terrifying. They traveled through cave after cave, path intersecting with path, and every couple of steps they'd circle around and around to the point it made his head spin. Despite walking so close to Gong Yizhao's back, Shen Qingzhou almost lost him quite a few times. If Gong Yizhao hadn't known the assignments and schedules of the water prison's staff like the back of his hand, who knew how many disciple guard patrols they would have run into? After an hour, they finally made it out of the underground water prison. They walked many kilometers more without stopping and entered Bailu Forest until they were about to cross the border of Huanhua Palace's territory. The water prison's alarm had yet to sound, meaning that no one had yet discovered that the prisoner was gone. Luo Binghe's order forbidding all others from visiting the water prison had inadvertently greatly aided Shen Qingzhou's escape. After a short rest, Shen Qingzhou said, "Young Master Gongyi, after this point you needn't stay to send me off. Hurry back now while we're still undetected." After a pause, he added, "Within 7 days, go to Huaiyue City. You'll definitely find me there." Don't leave him! Gong Yizhao, don't go! Gong Yizhao, don't go! Don't go, Gong Yizhao! It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine and normal, and Gong Yizhao will be fine, right? If that's the case, I won't accompany you any further, Gong Yizhao said. Even though I don't know what Senior intends to do about these future concerns, please be careful. And Senior, please don't worry about the sex trial next month. As you said, those clean will remain clean no matter what. The sect leaders will obviously exonerate you. Unable to help himself, Shen Qingzhou laughed. First, his dark history was set in stone and couldn't be erased. Second, the trial next month had fuck all to do with him. He immediately cupped his hands, carefree and satisfied. May we meet again. I wish he would cup his face. It's fine. What is this ominous feeling? The road from Huanhua Palace's border to Huayue City ran through the most densely populated and economically developed street of the Central Plains. This also meant that an exceptionally large number of secular cultivation sects and influential families were located within the area. The cultivators of this world highly valued aerial defense. Like in Jinlan City, they often set up aerial defense barriers over their territories. If the immortal sword or spiritual artifact flew through it above the speed limit, it would undoubtedly be discovered and reported to the sect's higher-ups. They have speed limits. Obviously, traveling in this way would be like bombastically broadcasting his escape trajectory via megaphone. Shen Qingzhou flew part of the way and walked another without rest until he finally arrived at Huayue City the following night. How many pages do I have left? Quite a lot. I think... Should we stop here? It's like... wait, okay, let me read... Should we stop here? I don't know. I'll read a little longer. Why not? His arrival timing was terribly unfortunate. As a festival celebrating the establishment of Huayue City was in full swing, the city was adorned with colored lanterns that would be brightly lit the entire night. Soaring dragons and lion dances were filled the streets, the drums and music thunderous. People were packed together, vendor next to vendor, peddlers shouldering their poles as they slunk down every street. Practically everyone had poured out of their homes. Even more unfortunate was that, on his arrival, dark clouds covered the moon. Without the support of sun or moonlight, the chances plan would fail greatly increased. Anxious about the odds, Shen Qingzhou decided to wait for the time being. At most, one day, if after that day the clouds had yet to disperse, he couldn't afford to care anymore. If the chance of failure remained greater, so be it. A risk would still be better than clinging to an overripe sun-moon doom mushroom and crying about it. At that point, even if it was cooked and served with alcohol, it would just reek of fertilizer. As Shen Qingzhou walked cautiously, he occasionally bumped into rowdy children or brushed past groups of laughing girls, and he felt very slightly that it really was a pity. If he weren't currently fleeing for his life, he would have liked to take a thorough tour of the city. Remember this part? Ooh, I honestly don't really remember this part very well. Suddenly, several men, all dressed in clothes of the same color, were walking toward him, long swords slung over their backs. Each one held his head high and chest out. From a glance, one could tell they were arrogant disciples from a random sect. Though it sounded strange, the smaller and more random the sect, the more afraid their disciples would be that others didn't know they were cultivators. If they couldn't have gotten away with it, they would have emblazoned their clothes with huge slogans. Shen Qingzhou turned his body in a natural manner and smoothly picked up a demon mask from the side. He placed it over his face, then openly and confidently walked toward them. At the festival, 6 out of 10 attendants were wearing masks. If he mixed in with them, he didn't have to fear drawing attention. Qishong, would that Shuya sword really sit around in this city waiting to be captured? One man from the group asked. The four sects sent out the warrant for his capture as one. How could it be fake? The leader berated them. Didn't you see how many sects have sent people here to box him in? Keep an eye out. You saw Huanhua Palace's bounty too. Don't you want it? Myriad thoughts filled Shen Qingzhou's mind. It turned out that, without his knowledge, he had become a wanted criminal. It's no wonder Huanhua Palace put down such a large sum. What happened to them was really just awful. The most I did to them was knock out an insignificant disciple, Shen Qingzhou thought. I didn't do anything else, so how did Huanhua Palace suddenly become the tragic victim? He wanted to keep listening, but they pulled further and further ahead, and the rush of people cut him off. So he could only give up. While he was mulling over whether he should find an abandoned residence to rest, he felt a sudden weight upon his leg. When he looked down, he saw a small child clinging to his thigh. Now I'm remembering. Fuck, now I'm remembering and I really want to read more, but it's like it's a lot of pages and it doesn't end with just... I think we really have to stop here. I think we really have to stop here because otherwise I'm not going to be able to stop and I'm going to like have to stop in the middle of this whole shit. But yeah, we will stop at the end of, at the bottom of page 119. Let me write that down. Ugh! Oh, fuck, I love this part. Fuck, I love this part. Okay, it's fine, it's fine. Everything's fine. It's not creepy and scary at all. This is normal. This is normal behavior from everyone. It really is, honestly. Well, I mean, I have a bookmark, but sure, 119. Start on... Okay. Okay, I've written it down. I've written it down and it's gonna be exciting next week. Everything is exciting. This whole book is so fun and exciting and it just doesn't get any better than this. Alright, but I will leave you here on a bit of a cliffhanger. we're gonna start back here and then like start the next chapter next time as well. Oh, that's gonna be so fun! Oh, this is gonna be so fun! Oh, you don't even know how fun it is going to get. Can I read all that? Yeah, maybe I can. Maybe I can from 119 to 165. That's like 50 pages. I can read that. I can do that. We'll do that next time. Alright? Alright. Sorry. Alright. It's been real, but I have to leave now. That's great. Have a great night. Have a great night too. I'm gonna go watch the fucking K-pop movie. Because it's all that's been on my feed. Since it came out, so I guess I gotta see it. Alright. Y'all have a good night. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe as best you can. As best you can. For real. And mask up, alright? I'll see you later. Goodbye.